is there a motion on the board's part, because we are now on to action? We did have to delay a meeting because the board was trying to catch up a little bit, and now I think we've had a lot more information, so I appreciate that. Is there a motion on the Bay Point attendance boundary proposal?
I motion to approve the boundary modification for Bay Point Elementary Schools.
Okay, motion by Mr. Lawrence, is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Denler? Second by Mrs. Denler? Okay, thank you. Motion by Mr. Lawrence, second by Mrs. Denler. Board discussion or questions?
I did look at your PowerPoint, the pictures online, and I too remain concerned, even looking at the trail, although I haven't walked it. I still envisioning these small children walking on that trail, and it's 1.5 miles. So although I understand the need to make this boundary change, I would really like us to continue considering, as the speaker came forward, maybe that one bus to take those children at that one stop to Rio Vista. If we could look at that, I'd really appreciate it. And I know there are crossing guards where there are stoplights. There's one down, I don't know if Pleasant Hill pays for it or it's Concord, but it's on Monument Boulevard, right where the Kohl's Shopping Center is. There's a crossing guard there. I mean, and there's a stoplight, and she's there every day. So I know that occurs, but I would really hope we could still consider the transportation for those kids going to that Rio Vista.
I'm sorry, what? Oh, it's up to the board. I couldn't hear it. This thing blowing over our heads. That would be up to the board to consider, Mrs. Nail.
Yes, and as Ms. Mason is talking with the Bay Point MAC, I would also like there to be some questions or exploration. I don't know whether it's the Department of Transportation or who would have jurisdiction over the lights there at Bailey Road, and also the lights on Port Chicago and Willow Pass, to determine whether or not the crossing time could be increased by, say, 30 seconds or maybe 45 seconds during the window that the children would be walking to school, maybe 15 to 20 minutes before school, and 15 minutes after, because there are always those people that, or those students that are a little bit slower when they're walking to school. The same with the dismissal times. I know it's awkward on Wednesdays because of the early out, or especially when there is conference schedules, but many of the signals now can be programmed, so perhaps that'll be another solution to ensure that there's more time for students to cross. I know the public will be unhappy because they have to sit maybe another 30 to 45 seconds, but student safety is foremost. So I would appreciate that.
Do you want to put that in as a board kind of consensus on having a report back on the feasibility of keeping that one bus and on the longer traffic signals?
We won't have control over the traffic signals. I would just like it to be an inquiry.
Do you want to have it reported back at the next board meeting? Put
It
that
may take,
down.
I wouldn't put a time on it because it may take longer to find the right person to.
We want to make sure if the board would like Mrs. Locke to look into that. I think we could look at, the issue of the bus Mrs. Oaks is presenting.
I would like to have a report back on what the cost would be to continue that bus service.
I'm looking around at the board, because Mrs. Denler, who doesn't know what I'm doing, but I'm looking around the board because it's not one board member's decision, it's a group, and I don't think I hear anybody really pushing back on that because safety's first. So given that, can we find out about the cost of that one bus at our next board meeting? And maybe if you're able to, on the traffic signals with the city, I don't know what is involved in that, but maybe get an update on those two items. Mrs. Mayo?
Well, my concern as we're looking at, what was the distance, 1.8 8 for those particular students. Are there other students in the Bay Point area that also have to walk 1.8 or 2 miles? And if you're going to provide busing for one particular area, do we need to consider the distance for all students?
Okay. So why don't we take a vote on the motion to approve the boundary modifications, and then we can maybe just have a couple of follow-up things, but whether we're going to approve it or not, let's do that first. So, I'm sorry, Mr. Lawrence has a comment.
And I just want, so obviously there remains further discussion needed on this, but I wanted to take a second just to say thank you to Ms. Locke for her work. And I know this process is taken longer than originally anticipated, but I think the real positive that came out of that is the fact that we've had a chance to really see how much work was done by the community members and how deeply they dove into this issue and sought out, all points of view and came up with the best possible solution. And, frankly, I just don't have any idea as to what a better solution is than the one that they've proposed. And even though it may, need continued refinement, I think overall that they've done the most equitable and fairest thing possible. So thank you to them for that.
Okay, thank you. And we appreciate hearing there was community involvement, because as I said, the board got the information late in the game and had to play catch-up. So we hope in the future we get these right as they're beginning, then we can participate in the information sooner. And I know Mrs. Locke is good at doing that, so we don't have to worry there. Okay, let's take a voice vote as we click. So those in favor of approving the boundary modification for the Bay Point Elementary School, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0 on that. And then if we could just ask staff, perhaps, when I say staff, of course, it's Mrs. Love. If we could, at our next meeting, if you find something out, to check on the busing cost. And I heard just the one bus, and then I also heard maybe, is there another bus that we might look at? And just checking out the cost of that, and then the traffic signals and the timing of those. I don't know what's possible. I've never looked into that. Do you have thoughts?
I think it's finding the right person to talk to, like Mrs. Mayo said, city. I just want for clarification from Mrs. Oaks, so that would be a bus from the Rio Vista affected area. Affected area going to Rio Vista.
Yeah, the one that Dr. showed there from Rio Vista. It was on, I guess, on Willow Pass Road.
And we didn't make this conditional on that. We just approved that, but we might all, modify something in the future. Okay, thank you for your work on this, and I'm glad we could bring an answer to the community at least. Not that everyone's going to love everything we ever do, but at least we have what we hope is a good solution for now. Okay, next on the agenda.